Everybody can say hi to Bruce.
Hey, Bruce. We talked on the phone, I don't know, about a month ago about something.
Yeah.
It was funny. Hey, this is Steve Hindalong from the choir. I'm here with my friends.
Dan Michaels.
Hey, Derri.
And you are listening to the True Tunes Podcast.
Come on in.
I'm not sure what Derri Daugherty and Steve Hindalong were thinking when they decided to name their spiritually inflected alternative new wave rock band Youth Choir, later simply The Choir, back in the early 80s. It was a good band name to be sure, good enough in fact to have been used by a regionally famous Ohio garage rock band back in the 60s. It was ironic in a way to take something obviously churchy and make something rock and roll out of it. The Altar Boys did it, the Church, Ministry, Genesis, the Jesus and Mary chain, even Black Sabbath and Judas Priest leaned into religious imagery for their names. So, Youth Choir, or The Choir, made sense. Every band needs a name, and The Choir picked a good one before all the good ones were gone.
Oh, it's so wonderful to be in love with you. Only you can make me feel the way you do. There's no words that I can say to tell you why I feel this way. It's so wonderful to be in love with you.
Hello, I'm John J. Thompson, and this is the True Tunes Podcast. I started dreaming up this whole True Tunes thing when I attended the first Cornerstone Festival back in 1984. I was almost 14 years old, and I wanted to find a way to keep what I called the Cornerstone buzz going all year. Cornerstone brought thousands of people together from all over the world to hear the most eclectic collection of gospel-tinged music most of us could imagine, along with teaching, films, poetry, and conversations. It was truly unlike anything I had ever experienced before or since. For a few days, we all came together. The bands and the fans, the teachers and the students, the misfits and well, I guess most of us were all misfits in one way or another. But at Cornerstone, we all felt at home. I wanted True Tunes to help maintain that connection through the other 360 or so days of the year, and to widen the circle.
Consider your laughter. Consider my tears. Consider my love. Consider your fear.
The Choir was the first band to play on the first day of the first Cornerstone Festival. They also played the closing set on the last day of the final festival back in 2012. Cornerstone ended, but the Choir rolls on. Most faithful fans are numbering their newest album, Deep Cuts, among their best.
Come on down, sunshine girl, my sunshine girl. Come on down. Meet me in this dreary town. Set fire to my world. Sunshine girl, come on down. My sunshine girl, come on.
I remember once trying to explain the Choir to a friend in the music business. I was in Los Angeles at a fancy hotel where industry folks gathered once a year to vet the various albums and singles that had been entered for consideration for the Grammy Awards. And that year, one of the people in the room was absolutely flummoxed by the music and lyrics of this swirling, ambient band that was both dreamy and loud. One of the jobs of the committee was to determine if the entries were, in fact, gospel-oriented. The more traditional gospel folks didn't quite know what to make of alternative music in general, but the Choir, whose lyrics were particularly poetic, figurative, and at times almost psychedelic, just didn't sound like gospel to some of those good folks. When we broke for lunch, the friend sitting next to me in the meeting asked me for more perspective on the band. When I told him that they weren't kids, actually, and that they had been making music since the early 80s with little hope of commercial success, he was amazed. I explained that while, in my opinion, they deserved mainstream attention and fans, there was no denying the gospel nature of the lyrics if they were understood poetically. They did earn a Grammy nomination, by the way, for their 2000 album Flap Your Wings.
I suppose you found some peculiar creatures to get to know. You always were a curious kind of soul. Sad you had to go so soon. Hey Gene, we remember you. Yeah, we laugh when we think of you, Gene. Hey Gene, we remember you. Yeah, we cry when we think of you, Gene. Hey Gene, we remember you. Yeah, we love you anyway. Hey Gene, flap your wings. Flap your wings.
Of course, any longtime members of the True Tunes Corner of the World know all about the choir. You're ready for me to shut up and roll the tape already. Allow me, however, to imagine for a few more moments that somewhere on the other end of the wires and Wi-Fi waves that deliver this show, there may be some who have yet to hear the sweet sound of Derri Daugherty's voice, the effervescent and melodic pounding of lyricist drummer Steve Hindalong, the emotive cascade of sound that flows from Dan Michael's saxophone and lyricon, and, until recently, the impossibly muscular bass of the late Tim Chandler. Yes, we have Daugherty, Hindalong, and Michaels with us today. I actually joined them in their own private studio to talk through deep cuts and to explore their origin story a bit. We've got lots of history with this band, but I'm sure hoping we can turn some newcomers on to this unlikely musical story of friendship and family. Because this conversation is so extensive and essentially takes us on a tour of both the new album and the roots of the group, Bruce is rolling out the old jukebox and firing her up to use throughout the show. So please forgive the stack of records lying about. We'll get to all of that, the ups and downs of one of our favorite bands, and a guided tour through their new album after we take care of a little housekeeping.
Hey there, this is Jimmy Abeg. I'm here to tell you about something I'm involved in and so excited about that I want to share it with the rest of you. The idea of helping kids in need has long been a passion of mine, and Vision Trust has come forward with an opportunity that I can be actively involved in creating and generating both excitement and support for those kids out there. I can remember many occasions with my years with Rich Mullins where we were able to raise funds for building a school in Colombia, all the way to trips to Ecuador with Michael W. Smith to visit not only his sponsored children, but Randy Stonehill sponsored kids. My wife and I have been child sponsors since before we were married. I can tell you that for more than 43 years, this has been one of the main things in our lives. So one of the ways that I think I can help is by offering a print free of charge to anybody that wants to sponsor a kid. I think that's an amazing opportunity to join the freight train headed for goodness. So get on board. Let's get this thing rolling. Thank you to Vision Trust. Thank you for having the vision to sign up a blind man.
True Tunes is so proud to come alongside Vision Trust and Jimmy in this critical work. You've heard us talking about the investment they are making in vulnerable children's lives around the world as they support local champions and effective programs that provide both personal care for the kids and community support as well. For more information or to join us in the sponsorship journey and help rescue one child from the grip of poverty and get a beautiful handmade one-of-a-kind print from Jimmy, visit visiontrust.org/JimmyA or find the link on the show notes page for this episode. Thank you, Jimmy, and thank you, Vision Trust. And thank you to the other Vision Trust artists out there spreading the word about this important work. We are really excited about the growth this show has seen over the last several months. If you have taken the time to write and post a review and give us a 5-star rating at Apple Podcasts, thank you. If not, please do. We've made it onto the top 50 list of music podcasts at one point, and I know that is because of your help. Please keep posting links to your friends and letting folks in your world know about this conversation. As you have heard me explain, I served as the musical supervisor and as a special historical consultant on the film Electric Jesus. I was honored to approach the choir about the use of a song from their 1986 album, Diamonds and Rain. We asked if they would be interested in recording a brand new master for us. So, when you see the movie, you'll hear a brand new version of this 35-year-old tune, sounding very much in the spirit of the original, but all beefed up for today. I'm here with Steve Hindalong, Derri Daugherty. I'm here with Steve Hindalong, Derri Daugherty, and Dan Michaels of the choir, who went in and re-recorded Render Love specifically for the Electric Jesus soundtrack. So we're talking about needle drops, and this one is actually a needle drop. It's a classic song, but a new recording of a classic song. Steve, first of all, you got a chance to see the movie. Like, you were around in 1986 watching, bands. What did you think of the movie in general? What were your impressions?
It just gave me a weird feeling of, I don't know, I had mixed feelings. Sometimes it was too close for comfort, honestly. It was fun. I'm glad our song was real early in the movie, because I would have waited the whole time, not watched the movie, just waiting for our song, but it was really early. I was a little bit bothered that there was so many 77 songs and they were louder in the mix than ours, But other than that, it was interesting. I liked how real the movie was. It was trying to be quite honest. But yeah, it was, because we were never part of the metal thing.
Right.
So that was sort of a metal thing, and it was different than our experience.
The needle drop stuff in the background is kind of serving almost like a reminder or a subtle kind of compass that says there was actually some cool, this other stuff going on. Like,
what I totally thought, John? Because I know you were involved. You were musical director or whatever, right?
I was music supervisor.
Yeah, so I thought to myself, because the band was more into metal. Yeah. He had all this alternative stuff, and I thought, John Thompson placed all those songs. Those are his songs. I totally thought.
To be fair, Chris, the guy who wrote the movie and directed the movie, the truth was most of us who were kids back then, we kind of liked everything. Right. There wasn't those hard lines. I tended to be more the alternative kid, but I still liked metal if it was really out there. And when at Cornerstone, I'd kind of watch all the bands, but there's the scene when the main kid rattles off, all the bands that he's into.
Right.
And that's designed to kind of show that if you were hardcore into the scene, you were so desperate for music that was cool that you just kind of listened to anything that was halfway cool.
We used to laugh about that. People come up to us and go, "You're my favorite band, you guys and Petra." You're like, how can you?
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be you guys in Bloodgood, or you guys.
Well, like your friend.
Yeah, my friend Justin. He picks me up in his yellow and black Camaro. Everything is striper. He even took me to the Striper show, which was pretty good. I give them their due. They made their mark. But whatever, you can't be farther extreme. He loves our band, the choir, and he loves Striper.
Yeah.
You got me. He took me to see that band Dream Theater. I'm like, no, why is there no girls in the crowd? Because you can't dance to this music. It's got no soul. What are you talking about? We don't agree on anything musically, except he loves our band. So.
And you do too. Well, when you go back and you think about the mid-'80s, when you go back and you are thinking about the choir in 1986 when Render Love came out, and that song in particular, what were you trying to get across in that song?
Well, it was political season like it always is, and it definitely had a little, it would have been Reagan time, right? Yeah. So it was definitely, it had a little political bent to it. And I remember thinking it was kind of like John Lennon's Give Peace a Chance.
Was it fun to go back and record it?
Yeah, it was. It was interesting just trying to play that fast For me, anyway. It wasn't for him, but it was for me. It was like, oh, no.
Yeah, we tried to recreate it exactly as it was. I mean, I played the drums exactly the same drum fills, just sounded a little better. I think Steve Hindalong did a great job recording it. Chris Donahue honored Tim's bass part and played it note for note. The only big difference is we took it down a whole step.
Yeah.
It was too high for Derri.
It's too high. Yeah, it was. I couldn't sing that high.
And I remember you went and found like the original sounds because they were kind of hard to find because those keyboards are pretty obsolete now, right?
Right. Yeah. I had to kind of go online and do a weeks long search to kind of get as close to those sounds as I possibly could. So I got some online samplers that sounded like the old Yamaha DX7 and
that Juno 60.
Yeah, the Roland Juno 60. So came as close as I possibly could.
Yeah. Here, for the first time on our podcast, is the newly recorded version of Render Love.
What does a man gain who loses his soul? What can a man rule who conquers his world? Then falls out his window and loses his girl. Render love, let there be peace in the land. Reconcile woman and man. Lay down your weapons and lift up your fear. Stranger meet brother, pass the peace pipe. See in the man's eyes, no stereotype. Love waits at our door, the spirit divine. Sow it in your heart, reap it in mine. Render love, let there be peace in the land. Reconcile woman and man. Lay down your weapons and lift up your fear. Render love, hold out your hand, be the one midst of your fear, render love. Hold out your hand, be the ones. Reconcile father and son. Love after all is the reason we're here. Render love.
Well, here I am with the choir. Thank you guys for being on the True Tunes podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. I got here a copy of the old True Tunes magazine. You guys were cover boys, all three of you, actually.
Oh, that's right.
On the cover
I
of
have
True
a couple
Tunes.
of those in my crawl space.
And is it good insulation? Keeping the keeping the
they're in a
heat
box.
in the house.
The keeper of the archives.
The funny thing is, when we took that photo shoot, we probably thought, look how old we look. And now I look at it and like, oh my gosh, look how young we look. Right?
It was probably 25 years ago. And the interesting thing is that it says here that it was on the we talked right after what was supposedly your farewell tour,
Right.
right before Free Flying Soul.
That's right.
So obviously you suck at doing farewells
Right.
because you're still here.
We gave it a little bit of a try though, because we did close the doors until like 2000.
2000.
Yeah, it was 2000, and I think we got back together because we were invited to play a festival in Albuquerque, and I think that kind of led to it's like, hey, we can keep doing this.
So thinking back to the early days of youth choir when you guys first started making music, what do you remember kind of what your original purpose or intent was? Did you have a plan in mind for what you wanted to do?
I don't know if we had a plan. I don't think. As far as my perspective on it, I grew up playing music my whole life in church. So for me, it was just, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in a band, and then saw these other bands happening and just, wanted to be in a band. And my dad wouldn't, my parents, I was a preacher's kid. They're not going to let me go play in a bunch of bars at 15 or 16, so it was just this natural progression of what I was doing in church.
Yeah. Did you have a sense?
Not
or
really. I
purpose?
mean, in the beginning, it was kind of Derri's thing. Tim Chandler, our bass player, we went to college together, and he introduced me to Derri, and we were just kind of backing up Derri at first, and he had this connection with Maranatha Music, and Derri was an engineer, a live sound engineer, and also a studio engineer, and had relations with people like Daniel Amos and so forth. So we just kind of got involved. I was just kind of a drummer for Derri at first. And yeah, like Derri, I came out of a church scene, and it was very natural to play those kind of venues and become part of that scene. We became part of that scene of bands like Undercover and Altar Boys and the Lifters and Crumbacher and sort of that early 80s new wave sort of thing that was going on. We became part of it. It was very natural for us. But pretty quickly, we realized we didn't fit that. We didn't want to write those kind of songs. We didn't want to write just ministry songs. We didn't want to be a Christian band. And we figured that out. We started out as that, but I think we figured out pretty quickly within the second or third album that we just didn't. We wanted to write songs about what we wanted, whatever, and we weren't fans of Christian music per se. A few groups maybe, but.
And when you say that, just to kind of frame it for people that might not even know really what you mean, you were Christians and you were in a band, but you're saying you didn't want to be in a Christian band. What was the culture like, and how was that evolving into something that you were saying, wait a second, this isn't quite what we were signing up for? What kind of baggage was happening that was changing the definition of what it meant to be in a Christian band proper?
Well, the expectation was tremendous that you would give an altar call, and that, what are you? You're either one of two things. You're either evangelism or you're edification. You're like either edifying the body or you're getting people saved. One of these two functions. And there was no we're just playing songs that we like, that are about whatever's going on.
So the
and
music
we didn't
was
listen to that.
designed
Derri
to-
especially listened to so much music, introduced me particularly to all these music because he was like a collector, always buying the latest Sting. And it was just bands, it wasn't any Christian music thing. And so we we realized fairly soon that Derri wasn't really a guy, even though his dad's a preacher, he's not a preacher. And wasn't really good at it. Having that expectation of like giving an altar call or something, he didn't want to do it and wasn't good at it, and we didn't. And the songs eventually there were very few what you would call Christian songs very early on, but it shifted, And then I became I always wanted to write lyrics, and I started doing that, and more. They were just about what was happening in our lives. And some of it might have had to do with faith, and a lot of it didn't have to do with it. And so we evolved. We continued to evolve with our the kind of band we became, but we were dealing with the trappings of expectation.
Your lyrics always reflected that way of seeing things spiritually, and you as a lyricist, you were finding new and poetic ways of examining things from this spiritual perspective. You still kind of stayed in the Christian subculture, but you kind of found a tribe of people that were also similarly not interested in music that was kind of really just being used as propaganda, for lack of a better term. Like what it sounds like is the music was really secondary for a lot of those people. It was really the message and what the music could accomplish in terms of the church's agenda that was their priority. For you, the music and the poetry was really the point. And it seems like you found an audience that was interested in that too. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would think so. And even in the early stages, we played clubs pretty much from the very beginning. We played churches, we play anywhere. You're just trying to find a place to play, and whoever was booking you at the time, they're putting you in whatever, So in LA, we'd play clubs, and then one night we'd play at church, and then we'd play a youth group basement or something, It's
Right.
just, you're just trying to play like any other band, It's just that
And the other thing is we were on Christian record labels.
Right.
We can't blame... I'm mad sometimes at the situation, but we did it ourselves. We played the church venues. We played at Christian Night at Knott's Berry Farm. We played Cornerstone. What's Cornerstone? Jesus Christ, the rock of, we were doing that, and we were on Word Records. And they're like trying to get us on the radio. And it's really weird to try to create music that... when you can't even stand the music yourself. I couldn't stand to listen to Christian radio, but yet I'm under pressure to write a lyric that can be played on that station for the first several records. And it was probably our sixth record, Circle Slide, which is the last one we did on Word, where we finally just, look, this is going to be our last record. I thought for sure that was our last record. Let's just make the record we want to hear. And we know they can't sell it, and we're not going to worry about radio or anything like that. And they never could sell us, we couldn't be sold. But you're right, our music did find an audience somehow. Not a huge audience, but it resonated with some people, and they've stayed with us for decades. So it depends on how you look at it. You could look, sometimes I think we're absolute complete failure. How could you be a band for 35 years and have so little success? Well, why would you keep doing it, But on the other hand, it's like, wow, look at these people that have carried our songs in their hearts for decades and are still loyal and with us. So it just depends how you look at it.
Listen closely, I will sing for you a sentimental song, and you will know just how I feel. Listen closely, I will sing for you a sentimental song, and you will know my love is real.
When you think about it, how many of the bands that were cranking out really effective church ministry music right down that lane in 1984 85, 86, are still connecting with those crowds today?
None. I don't think any of them are around, right?
Not really.
I mean,
no.
you got some of the more adult contemporary ones around, like Amy Grant and Michael W. Smith. But as far as
But they're not even doing that kind of music
Yeah,
anymore.
right.
They've grown and evolved. And,
right,
yeah,
yeah. I think we're the last band standing.
So I would say that that's going to make part of what this story is really interesting, is that by finding your own path, digging into different dirt, you found a tribe of people that were also digging in the same direction. So now looking back over 35 years, the fact that you're still making, not only just making music, but making really good music, I don't know. I think I'd feel pretty good about that if I were you. I hope you can.
Well, one thing that we are really proud of is that we feel like we've done our best, just to kind of to tell the truth about who we are and about what's going on in our lives, and that is one place that Steve has really excelled, because he can go there where I'm pretty close and I can't go there, and so he can speak for me in a way that I can't speak for myself, which makes it easy to sing the lyric. So, but I think that one thing that we're proud of is that we've been consistent over the years.
Yeah.
I think that with our records, I don't look at any of them and just cringe and go, "Gosh, I never want to hear that again." I think we've been pretty consistent. I think we've grown. I think, and I'm really proud of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of our body of work too, and I'm not really ashamed of much. I think that when you make the music that you want to hear, make the record that you want to hear. I say that to people: paint the painting you want to see. You make the food you want to eat and share it. That's what art should be. Not trying to meet anyone's expectations. And consistently, I think we've made music that we like ourselves. And I've said the things that I feel are true and honest, and not trying to. It doesn't do anybody any good for me to act like I have something together or have some insight or some I'm better than you or some way. I think you want to hear music that you can relate to, and we've had a lot of drama in our lives. We've had a lot of trouble. We've made a lot of mistakes, and we have a lot of regrets, and some great things have happened too, but it's all in the music, and I think people relate to it because most people are that way.
Count the butts and bottles in the morning when you're gone. Fools agree reality is more than we should bear. How do you gaze into the sun from dusk to dawn? We love the truth enough to die, but we won't swear. Is your faith so right? Are you so blessed? Everybody wonders in the forest. Is your heart so true? Are you so good? Everybody wonders in the woods.
Dan, when did you get involved with these guys, and what do you remember about the earliest times that you started adding what you do into the mix?
I think I came in right after, when we were known as Youth Choir, when the Voices and Shadows record just came out. I think you guys were like maybe mixing it, or it had just been done when Derri kind of put out the word that he was looking for a sax player to add to the band. So just shortly after that record, so I've been playing with them since the Shades of Grey EP on at that point. And to me, I thought it was amazing to find this band because, I liked moody music. I liked, melancholy music. At the time, groups like Psychedelic Furs, or the Smiths, groups like that and stuff. And, as a saxophone player, you don't really find an opportunity to be in those kind of bands, usually in a top 40 band or a funk band or something like that. So I felt really, really lucky that I got to play in a band that I would want to listen to their music. When I first got in, I mean, I didn't have any big agenda either. Like, I grew up under a single mother and, no opportunity for college or anything. So I was like, I guess I'm going to be a saxophone player in a band.
That's an interesting jump there. That's a strange algebra equation.
Yeah. So it's just like, well, I didn't get educated, go into management or, open a business or anything like that. So I was naive enough to think that I was going to be able to make a living playing saxophone in an alternative rock band.
Right.
And,
so clearly management and business was probably something you're going to have to learn later.
Right. Yeah, that came on down the line later, like in the mid '90s. But that was it was a good feeling to join the group and play shows. And I was amazed that I think one of my first gigs was playing at Knott's Berry Farm in Southern California. There was like hundreds, if not a few thousand people in the audience at that time. It's like,
those were really popular.
I want to interject that it's really interesting when you're in a band with guys over so many decades, and just with close friends too. The way their lives, the trajectory of people's lives, and some of us we kind of are how we are, and there's no really surprise. But I'd say of all the people I've known, Dan has like evolved more than about anyone I can think of, and just from the time that we met Dan, because Dan,
I was awkward.
Yeah, he was fragile. He was a fragile person. He's been through some rough stuff growing up, or whatever, personal. Not the most confident guy, or whatever, but just to see Dan evolve over the years and become a man of like just so respected in this town, so admired, so accomplished. And it's been a great thing to see to see Dan's growth and evolution.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
In the last interview when we talked 25 years ago, it's interesting, you said something very similar, and that was about you coming out of your shell a little bit more. But you also told the story about how you had put a sign about playing sax, and you were about to go play for the Maranatha Orchestra, and some friend of yours was like, nope, and took that and gave it to Derri. It was like, you belong over here.
Yeah, we got it. Bobby Salcedo, a friend of ours, got his name off the bulletin board at Maranatha Music. It was like a band, people would put up they'd put up cards and things, hey, looking for a band, I play sax.
And then you played with Adam again as well. Like you were a pretty critical ingredient in that group.
Yeah, I was real fortunate to be asked to play with Adam again as well. I always considered the choir my band and all, but Adam again was a fun thing to be able to do, and I feel real proud of the work that I did on those records, and glad that I was able to have a relationship with Gene. The choir's always been the band.
That was an interesting time because the bands that had this faith, this Christian impetus going on, but were were looking, actively striving to find a different way of integrating that into their art that was less about propaganda and more about art. Adam again was a big part of that. The choir was a part of that. Daniel Amos was a part of that. 77s, those groups, all in that kind of soup of in the 80s. And you guys were one of the central elements of that kind of thing all the way back then. And you're still doing this. And now, Dan, you have, when we talked 25 years ago, you were just starting to get involved with working in the industry, and that has actually proven to be something that you've done really well at. Between then and now, you've worked at a couple of different labels, but you've had a long stint. And now tell me a little bit about, from a label perspective and what you know about the industry, looking back at the choir, what have you been able to bring into this that you've learned? What kind of expertise have you been able to bring in that has kind of helped sustain this, keep the candle burning for the choir?
I think it's empathy and loyalty that I have for the bands that I work with, because we were never successful as how, some people might define success. And so I always at a label wanted to do for the bands what I felt maybe our record label wasn't doing for us. And so I kind of look under every stone and every nook and cranny to figure out what I can do to make a band successful. And whether that's, currently I'm working with groups like Mercy Me, Phil Wickham, and, Skillet and groups like that. Even though they've seen a lot of success, even today I had some downtime. It was kind of a slow day. And I just sit there and think, what can I do for this band today? What can I do for them? Is there something I can do to further their music on there? So, when we were on a record label, we had several different marketing directors. Somebody new would come in, and somebody that got to know us would move out. And so I feel that I've been a consistent source of energy for the groups I've been able to work for.
Yeah. You guys feel like having Dan as that sort of resource in the band has been part of what's kept the choir afloat?
Well, Dan has definitely kept us going as far as after Free Flying Soul, he's the one that would say, hey, what about going in and doing a record? He's the one that kind of kept us.
Right, and got our website going. And he keeps it going. Dan's role has been very interesting for all these years. The sax and lyricon thing in the 80s, that was just so going on, the sax but as far as there's been different seasons where how are we going to put sax on a song? In the 90s, it wasn't so
without it being ska.
Right, it was kind of grungy stuff, and it was harder to incorporate it. So some albums there's hardly any, and then others there's more, and finding that role. Very interesting, on our newest album, I think Deep Cuts, Dan probably played more sax and lyricon than any other album, I'm pretty sure. And just over the years, but Dan's involvement as far as behind the scenes and just doing all the stuff that he does, again, that wouldn't have been predicted from the start, the way it has turned out in Dan's role. And also his wife, Lisa, is our handler. They have dogs and stuff, so there's the play on words there. But she's our handler too, and
because you can't be managed, you just have to be handled.
Right. Yeah, right. Basically, that's it's the perfect verb for what she does. But it's just we're like a family,
We'll have more with Derri, Steve, and Dan right after this. You need to be on our email list because it is the best way to make sure you hear about new episodes of this show and new articles posted on the site first. But you also need to be on the email list because that is the only way you can be eligible to win stuff from us. We occasionally do big giveaways, like our current prize pack that includes a ticket to the Audio Feed Festival in Champaign, Illinois this Labor Day weekend, a super rare DVD copy of the Cornerstone Festival 20 Years and Counting film from my personal collection, and a bunch of cool swag from us and from the Electric Jesus film. We are also getting ready to give away an amazing Jimmy A. Begg print, so make sure you subscribe and like and follow our Facebook page at True Tunes Now and our Instagram page at True Tunes Music to keep up with the conversation between episodes and to make sure you don't miss out on anything. And speaking of Electric Jesus and Audio Feed, you are going to want to make plans to be in Champaign, Illinois this Labor Day weekend for the live debut of Three Sick Teens, a fun version of the band from Electric Jesus, including singers Wyatt Lenhart, Sarah Hutchinson, and other actors from the film and more when they open for the Danielson family. I'll be on hand and we'll be doing True Tunes podcast events and conversations, and I'll also be performing a set with my band, The Wayside. So make your plans now and come join us in person for this amazing experience that will include a full screening of the film. All information is available at audiofeedfestival.com. All right, back to the conversation in the studio with the choir.
We are kindred spirits, everyone, dancing under one glorious sun. Children laughing, children crying, their souls undying. Kindred spirits free flying.
This evolution of Derri predominantly writing the music and the creating the soundtrack and you writing the lyrics, when did that evolve? Like how long into your work together did that formula sort of fall into place? You said that you didn't start that way. You started off kind of backing up Derri, but then you wanted to become a lyricist. So was it around Chase the Kangaroo or something that role was really kind of crystallizing with?
It was right after. It was right after Voices and Shadows, from what I remember.
Yeah, right away.
Shades of Grey. You wrote all the lyrics on that.
Yeah, was Shades of Grey before Diamonds and Rain? I forget.
The EP.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, the EP.
Yeah, I wanted to be a lyricist. I was an English major and a poet, a little poetry kid, and I just was very assertive, I guess, in that way, right from the beginning. And so on the EP, I just jumped in, and Derri just kind of allowed for it, and we got really good response. Mm-hmm. And I think we just realized, Derri was gracious to kind of let me do that. I often wonder, in bands and stuff, it's kind of like a marriage in that you can have this codependency. And it does, I think I wonder what would have developed. For example, I can't work anything technical. I can't even find the light switch. I have any aptitude because Derri was an engineer from the very start. So that was covered, right? So I didn't have to twist any knobs or flip any levers, So I, to this day, did not develop any engineering skill, even as a producer and all that. I just didn't. I think that was because of my reliance on Derri. And I think in the same way with lyrics, Derri probably, if it wasn't for me, would have evolved in that way, because like he wrote this song called Mercy Lives Here, which is one of the best lyrics in our entire catalog. Absolutely stunning.
A girl in the corner is crying. The silver-haired lady's alone, and the queen of the boulevard's trying to hustle somebody home. The smoking man shakes while the broken girl aches, and the clown starts to sing his song. He sings, mercy lives here. Oh, mercy lives here, at home with the saints and the sinners. Mercy lives here.
And it just made me think, well, what if Derri would have, have done that, you know. So I think there is some of that with all of us in bands and in relationships. But yeah, I just sort of took it over early on, and I loved to do that. That's kind of my gift.
So how does it actually function? Do you come up with tracks from whole cloth and send them to Steve, and Steve writes them? Do you sit together?
Yeah, it's usually what mostly happens is it's usually some chord. I'll strum some chord progression or something like that, and then Steve will hear it and go, "Oh, I like that. Well, I can do something with that," or "I got an idea for that." You know, like a lot of times I'll be screwing around with something, and Steve will be over here, and then he'll go, "You know, I think I got a lyric for that. I think I got a lyric I could put together for that or something." So
it's more collaborative in real time.
Yeah. And then now on the last few records too, Steve has just come in with a thing, and I might change a little something on it or whatever, but he'll come in with a chord progression and stuff, and what do you think about this lyric with this thing? And so it's, you know, it's kind of changed, but there's a lot of similarities. Mm-hmm. Honestly, English was not my greatest subject. In fact, when I was a senior, I almost didn't graduate because my English teacher said I was possessed by the devil. So wow. She gave me an incomplete. I guess the devil possession gets you an incomplete.
It's so not quite enough.
Yeah, so I had to go.
She doesn't want vengeance coming.
Yeah,
back.
I had to take a test. I had to go in and take this test for me to graduate.
Just because you had red hair.
Yeah, when she was a missionary, she came from.
Was it a Christian school?
Yeah,
bad religion right from the start.
Small Christian school.
Man.
So anyway, I was more than happy, you know, because I love good lyrics, and I don't want to read something I wrote and go, God, that's crap. You know, why did that go on the record? You know, and he'll sit and belabor a lyric for days, you know, hours and days, and I could do that with guitars for hours and days.
Right.
So,
at what point does Dan's involvement get added into that, and the decision making about, is this a sax thing? Is it a lyricon thing? Is it a keyboard thing? Like when does that?
Usually it kind of, early on we're always listening for places for Dan to play. So once we start, that usually comes once we start producing the song, and we'll be thinking, okay, well we need to leave a spot here because that'll sound cool as a sax, or get lyric, I can hear the lyricon going, do-do-do, you know, or whatever. And then we bring Dan in. You know, a lot of it's because he's just, his work schedule, he only has a finite amount of time. Mm-hmm. So then we'll bring him in towards the end.
It tends to be sort of the last touch, the last strokes of paint. Mm-hmm. You know, this album was great because we're in the studio is in Dan's house. So he's sort of more like a captive, you know. He comes home and like, you got to play now, you know, because you're here. You can't... Whereas before it was challenging to get Dan on because we're in the day doing the record and he's at work, had a day job.
Right.
So that's been much, much better in that way.
What's it like for you then? Like when you come in and you hear these songs, are you hearing them when they're in demo form and you're kind of in your mind already, the juices are flowing before you get, just kind of walk me through how it is for you creatively?
Yeah, you know, it kind of changes with every record, every song. I can remember getting a demo of the song "What You Think I Am" on our Shadow Weaver record, and I just remember being in my little music room and just trying to come up with a line for it, just like practicing really hard. And I'm really proud of that part, you know, that I did on it. But I worked it out in demo form before, you know, coming to the studio and saying, "Hey, let me try this out." But a lot of times I just kind of come in blind, you know. I've done it from practicing in my room in demo form to just coming in blind.
Wow. Man, yeah, that "What You Think I Am" song, that having that riff, that main hook be the sax driven, that was just
it's a great
bad to the bone. That was so good. It's like makes you want to own a Camaro just so you could drive down the street and play that so loud outside the window of a Camaro. That's Camaro rock if ever I heard it.
I'm nobody's angel, that ain't me. What kind of devil do you think I be? I'm a good Samaritan and a very, very bad man. I'm a whole lot better and a whole lot worse than what you think I am.
We'll have more with Derri, Steve, and Dan right after this. I want to thank our new Patreon supporters for helping us make this show possible. Our patrons get early access to higher quality audio files of each episode that they can then download. We also do some Zoom meetups and more, and we'll soon have some Patreon-only swag available. If you'd like to support this show by joining our Patreon circle, you can find the link on the show notes page or just go to patreon.com/TrueTunes and check it out. Oh, and if you're a patron and you're planning to be at Audio Feed this September, please let me know. All right, back to the conversation in the studio with the choir.
You're a wolf in the wild, I want to hear you howl. I'm a Saskatoon lynx on the prowl. I believe we're compatible, I'm reading all your signs. Please don't blame it on the wine. My eyes are on fire, baby, for you.
Let's talk about this new album, Deep Cuts. It's kind of funny, when I first saw that it was going to be called Deep Cuts, I'm lazily thinking, oh, from a record company thing, this must be like revisiting obscure album songs that weren't singles, like that kind of deep cuts.
Let me explain how that happened. We were set to go on tour. Roy was going to play with us, and we decided, because we tour pretty much every fall and every spring, and we do, like all bands, the favorites, and we thought, man, let's go out and let's choose some songs that we don't normally do. Let's really dig in deep and do a tour called Deep Cuts.
So it was that idea.
Yes, it was.
That was going to be the tour title.
Okay. So that was the tour title, and then I got thinking, and the lyric idea took on a different meaning for me, like a song called Deep Cuts. That's about our wounds, our childhood wounds, and the things that we live, we'll never overcome. They're a part of us, and that turned into a song, and I just thought, well, what if we go on this tour and we get we call the album Deep Cuts too, but it'll have a different meaning. So we'll be on the Deep Cuts tour, but we'll also have an album called Deep Cuts. So it was like a double hook.
That's new songs.
Yeah, a double hook was the idea. Well, then, the whole COVID thing happened. No touring. We never got to go do that tour. Yeah. But we have an album called Deep Cuts. And it's all new material, but the song Deep Cuts has a different meaning.
Yeah. Well, and the whole album seems to consistently somewhat fall under that theme. Like, did you write the songs after kind of coming up with that concept? Do all these songs fit under sort of the theme of Deep Cuts? Brokenness? Did you already know that you wanted to do an album about that? Or did you just write songs and then later recognize that they were all seeming to kind of follow along those lines?
I think all of our songs and all of our records are about that.
As I asked that question, I could hear that answer already coming.
Right, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I didn't think. That song was just its own thing.
Yeah.
And so I can't say that was a conceptual, but that would be a theme of all our music.
You also go back and you reference so many of your old songs, little lines here and there that longtime fans will just get a lot of delight of going, oh, that's from this song. I know that. But not in a way that would sound weird if somebody's never heard you before. Free Flying Soul or different lines that pop up they're always in service of the current song. I've not heard you do that as much in the past as you did on this record. Was that something that, again, you were thinking ahead of time because of thinking about Deep Cuts, so you were going to refer to the songs from the past, or was it just something that just kind of happened?
It just kind of happened.
Wow.
We've done it from time to time, and I know our listeners have enjoyed that. The long-term fans get their reward for, I remember that, Yeah. So giving them the little payoff for paying attention. And I enjoy it. I mean, you can steal from yourself,
You can steal from anybody.
Well, that's true.
That's true.
That's true.
But it is nice. It's self-referential in that way, and it does create some resonance with previous projects or breadcrumbs,
Yeah, it's fun to do that.
You're an integrated girl, rain, fire, and clouds. We might find the silver pearl with your treasure map right now. You've got nothing I need.
the album opens with that song "Hurricane," which I love the dichotomy or the juxtaposition of the imagery of a hurricane, and yet the musical setting being just so beautiful and pretty. So tell me about kind of how you come up with that, and then you start the album with that song. It's not typically the kind of song I would think of to start an album with. So.
I don't know. No, it was written before the whole COVID thing. Mm-hmm. It was sort of like the premonition, of, and it was before the hurricane season that actually happened. Mm-hmm. But I think it was really thinking about the political climate, the time we were coming up to the election. Times were so tense, and I don't remember. I think Derri just sent me the demo, like a little demo. Mm-hmm. Of he had just the acoustic guitar, it was just the acoustic and some kind of a rhythm pattern he had, and I don't know why things come when they come. The song is really is about interpersonal relationships, and that's what I think about the whole political argument and all that's going on. Facebook wars and all that is so stressful. Really, these are what's going to come of it. There's not much we can do about it. I mean, these things we don't have control, but we do have control to some degree of our relationships, and that's the thing what we can maybe improve or find shelter in the eye of a hurricane. That's with the people that you're close to.
Hard rain, howling wind, and hard rain. Find shelter in the eye of a hurricane. I feel the turbulence, you feel the turbulence. Hard rain, howling wind, and hard rain. Find shelter in the eye of a hurricane. In the eye of a hurricane. The sky is so clear, I wonder if a storm is brewing. Right now and here, sunlight is the grace of true friends. Mercy on the face of a true friend.
The album is sort of organized in fours. We knew we had 3 sides. We're thinking about vinyl, right?
Right.
And we're going to do 4, 4, 4, and 4. So you think about the vinyl flipping. So the first 3 songs are very broad, very talking about the situation. Even the second one, in the woods. I want to walk in the woods with a friend.
Right.
Is about the isolation and kindred spirits. It was all very collective feeling about the times.
And that one is interesting because it kind of flips the dynamic where the first one, the lyric is really intense, but the music is really peaceful. The second one, the lyric is really peaceful. I want to go for a walk in the woods with the friends. And the music is some of the most badass rock that you guys have done in a long time. It is just blistering.
I want to walk in the woods with a friend. I want to walk in the woods with a friend and talk about everything and nothing, and travel down the trepidatious path of ponderance. It's a wondrous day for wandering.
At the end of Feel You Close, you hear the little chatter, the girl. And that was Erica Estes, a daughter of a really good friend of ours, Paul Estes, who's been like a fan and supporter from Virginia for so long. And his 20-year-old daughter passed away suddenly, unexpectedly, had some heart condition happen out of the blue. Can you imagine? We're parents.
Yeah.
And we were friends enough that we talked quite a bit about it, and then he he sent me a little tape recording of a little clip he had, a little, iPhone recording of a clip he had of her. I was so happy that we found that sweet place for it on the album at the very end of Feel You Close. Mm-hmm. And the lyric even sort of resonated in that way. I smile when I feel you close, even though he'd lost her.
Wow.
So, yeah, there's special things on the record.
I smile when I feel close to me. I smile when I feel you in my heart. I smile when I feel you close to me, even though we're so far apart. So far apart.
In that group of four, that second group of four, is the song Aces of Our Age. And originally, I had written a lyric called Undaunted Love, which was about my daughter Erin and just thanking the daughter love thing, Mm-hmm. And but the music was so sentimental. It was a very, very major key melody, very major key pop, sounding thing. And that's why I felt so sentimental. But in the end, the guys are like, this is just, it felt kind of sappy, it just felt light. It just felt, haven't we done this? But I liked the track too much. We'd already tracked it, drums, bass, guitars, basically. I was like, really? Let me go back. And it's so hard to reapproach a lyric, right? Once you've done it, it's usually like, okay, if you don't like it, forget it. Get rid of that song. But I just was like, no, it's too good of a drum track, I'm not going to give it up, So I came back and I tried to make it really rough, like about death and, we all could have died this year and blah, blah, blah. And I tried my best to rough it up, the lyric. And then I put in the line, we lost one brother in the band. It rhymed. And all of a sudden the song started becoming about Tim and the loss of, It evolved into that. And then the narrative that I put in there, it evolved into a different song, and then I think we fuzzified it a lot sonically. Mm-hmm. Fuzzified it. Dan played the synth thing on the lyric, we tried to get extreme sounds.
Right.
So with the extreme lyric, tension in the lyric, and tension in the sonics, we roughed it up enough that we could get away with a super melodic. Mm-hmm. A major key thing.
And that, to me, is one of the examples of a song where it's like, oh my goodness, they really took us on a complicated journey because it's a complicated thing. How is that even possible? It's just
there's so much warmth in it, too, with every sunset is grace, every sunrise redemptive. It's got so much tension in that one song.
Right, yeah.
I never knew him to be faint of heart. He was wearing his time-weathered black leather jacket. Leo found him lying But then the next 4 songs are all about the just personal, wow, I've really effed up bad, you know? It's like, right? It was like tragedy. Like, this is because we've been through a lot. Just the struggle. And so I think there's humor in it. Reckless Ways to me is really funny. I think it's a hilarious song. But just about the struggles that we've had, very honest, very real, very human.
The road to ruin is wide. The gate to life is narrow. I'm way done following crooked paths. I'm flying straight as an arrow. I've got some good friends on the loose. Coyotes living free. I won't be running wild with the pack. Don't worry about me. Oh, I'll still be having fun in moderation. I'm feeling incentivized to drive across the nation, across this beautiful nation. I said goodbye to all my reckless ways.
Even with the song Reckless Ways, and it's like my former reckless ways. Like, it's not like, well, this only happened yesterday, but now they're my former reckless ways. And then the song Trouble follows it. If you're looking for trouble, just a high contrast of that. You think that I'm saying we're fixed, we're not fixed.
Right. Well, Trouble is fun because it's got that film noir feel to the track, and the lyric is totally like a vampire story. I love those two being together, and it's interesting also that you put them in the order that you did, because common sense would probably have them in a flipped, like
Exactly.
But you gotta do it
Exactly.
this way. Again, complicated answers to complicated questions, if there's even answers there.
Right.
Your blood is molten fool's gold. You disregard wise words you're told. You're the vixen of my dreams. I won't try redeeming your soul. You don't care so much for daylight. The sun in your eyes is too bright. You're too lovely to fear. Did the devil send you here tonight? If you're looking for trouble, maybe I'm the kind of trouble you're looking for. If you wanna feel the heat, baby, I'm the smoke creeping under your door. If you wanna see the flames rise, look into my eyes. You don't have to search no more. If you're looking for trouble, maybe I'm the kind of trouble you're looking for.
And then that third side kind of switches to the romantic songs. It kind of goes out nice and warms it up. It all kind of warms up at the end. There were some people talking in the choir club about, isn't that kind of creepy? These guys this old writing these kind of romantic sexual songs or whatever. And man, I just heard Leonard Cohen. He wrote the most sexually romantic songs. Right up to his last album before he died. So. We're not dead, So,
but you're saying that Deep Cuts kind of stands on its own. Like, you don't feel like that's in the romantic set.
No,
right?
No, Deep Cuts is its own song.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of for everybody.
Right.
Some songs are really specific to a certain person, and some songs are broad.
Right.
Most of the time, our songs are very specific to someone, but Deep Cuts is pretty much for everybody.
Yeah. That image that you use on the album cover, the kintsugi art, the plates, china that's been broken and then put back together, and instead of hiding the fractures, they use gold, and they use it, and it makes it even more valuable because it's a master that put that back together again. Did that idea... Did you come up with that idea after the song was done? Was that kind of woven into the idea of the song, or how do those things play with each other?
That came after the song Deep Cuts, but before the song The Woods.
Interesting.
Because it's a reference to every bowl with gold-filled cracks becomes a treasure. That was after we decided to do the kintsugi thing.
This idea of, I love how that starts with "You are beautiful." That kind of sample. What is that from?
Well, that's with our Kickstarter, people supported us in all kinds of different ways. And one of those was like, for a certain amount, you get to count off a song.
Oh.
And the guy that did that was a really good friend, Chris Hain, from Hollywood, California. And he chose to count. He supported us quite a bit of money to get to do it.
He did.
And he was the only one that did it. And like, we've been friends with Chris for so long.
Years.
And I gave him like 2 or 3 songs to choose from. He really resonated with the song.
It's lovely.
It's cool.
One of the family, the
Yes.
extended family.
You are beautiful. Hit it.
Are you troubled by your own reflection? Searching for a friend to trust? Does it feel like forever won't be time enough to heal your heart from the deepest cuts? Child, you are loved. You have always been loved. May one divine kiss be enough to heal your heart from the deepest cuts.
This idea of the scars and accentuating, or at least, not hiding them, but leading with them in a way. Why do you suppose we are so committed to covering up our brokenness?
I think it goes with the theme of that we've always had about being merciful to one another. Derri always talks about it from the stage, about we want to extend mercy to other people because we want people to extend mercy to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of goes along with that theme, when the sun shines bright, illuminating your scars, you're even more wondrous in my eyes, to see, because we want other people to see that in us. I want someone to see my goodness in spite of the mistakes I've made.
Mm-hmm. Why do you suppose Christian music has such a problem with this? Like, there's such a tendency to celebrate the victory and the wholeness, and to put on the kind of masks and stuff, and to really cover those cracks as best we can. What?
It is a challenge, as a lyricist, because especially early on, we sell joy. Christian music is joy for sale. And I don't feel joy. I mean, we had the song called "Sad Face," where right out of the Ecclesiastes, sorrow is better than laughter, because a sad face is good for the heart.
Sad face is good for the heart. It's alright, you don't have to smile. A sad face is good for the heart of a child.
But there's a lot of pressure I guess in that industry, to sell joy.
I got to be honest. Like, I tend to want to project certain things, and even in terms of my own brokenness, I realize when I look back, sometimes it's I've broken, and that's why I hurt you. And so when I'm looking at somebody else, it's like, well, don't blame me for that thing I did. It's because I had a difficult childhood and I've got wounds from that, and that's why I just hurt you. Mm-hmm. And
we like to hide.
Yeah.
And because and this goes way farther than just Christian music or Christianity or whatever. As a human being, for whatever reason, we're conditioned to think that our scars are more deeply bad, are worse than everybody else's scars. So if they see our scars, they're going to go, "Oh my God,"
right.
Because even when people decide to share about themselves, they're always sharing, well, I've got all these scars, but today I had this victory.
Right.
I had this thing that happened that, it's never, man, I just feel like crap today, and I don't like anybody in this room, and I don't want to be, it's like the whole thing.
Right.
We never, it's always prefaced with, I got scars, but yet today,
Yeah.
and that's the only reason we share it, is because there was some kind of victory happening or something.
Right. I think that's one thing we did on the record with the song "The Fool," which is, how many lashes will it take to motivate the reprobate? I was talking to myself in the song, and it just doesn't have a solution. There's no fix. There's those times when we find ourselves in the bottom of a well, and you just think, how did I end up in the bottom of this well? My own doing or whatever, and how am I going to get out? There's no way I can get out of this bottom of this well. And that's what that song does.
Yeah. I was thinking about how often I've thought about the scars or the broken places and thought about healing, when God puts certain pieces back together. And then when I go out and say, look, I'm broken and healed, you can be healed too. That kind of transparency and honesty is grace. Like that is just invitational to other people to say, boy, I would love to be that. But we often can't get to that point of healing unless we're willing to admit that we're broken.
What great penance is required to rehabilitate the criminal? What suffering will inspire the education of a fool? How many lashes will it take to motivate the reprobate? Rolling in the cool mud like a happy-go-lucky mule. It's a far cry too late to atone.
As you think about now where you sit, and this record is done, and you're proceeding, you've just launched a new chapter with this Patreon thing. Tell me about that and how that's, maybe Dan, you can tell us about how that will fit into the mix.
Well, Derri had been bringing it up over the last year or so, and I kind of was a little bit dismissive of the idea, but I realized that we want to stay active, and it's hard to stay active with creative content if you're just doing like a record every 2 or 3 years. And with the studio here, I thought that it would be an opportunity for us to make a connection with a certain number of our fan base that would allow us to be consistent with coming up with material, throughout the year. And then we can repurpose those songs later on.
And so how will that functionally work? Like what does it look like? People become members and they give a certain amount every month, and then what are the kinds of things that you'll be doing with that circle?
Right. So on Patreon, there's like several different tiers that people can contribute, anywhere from $3 to $75. And on the kind of the middle tiers and higher tiers and stuff, we promise people that we'll do one song a month, a brand new song every month for them. In addition, just behind the scene content, we've posted stuff on Facebook, and we've when we can and stuff, but we have such a rich catalog of songs that we can talk about that fans I'm still amazed how fans will go onto our Facebook page, and ask questions about a lyric from 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so there's a hunger to kind of get some more insight with the band, and I figured we can do that with a Patreon.
Another thing is that they can see us in process a little bit. We're not committing to have album quality songs. Like every month, we're going to at least give them at least one song that's from scratch. But we're not going to necessarily, we're not going to hire other players. I'm not going to. Derri's going to, we'll do the low end ourselves. I might use a drum machine instead of drums. So they're going to, and then maybe I'll recite the lyric in advance, and so they get to see a little behind the scenes.
But you'll still do albums on
We're
top
still
of
going to do
this.
albums.
Yeah.
We're not going to stop doing albums and Kickstarters and things like that. This is another thing that we can do to keep busy and to give our fans some other things that they want. We're going to do videos in here. We're going to do, maybe even have some special guests come by and do, a song with them and videotape it, and so that we're just trying to keep going, trying to expand it, and also on the Patreon thing, I have my own secret Derri tier that these guys don't really know how to access it, but it.
So you're going to make a lot more money than us?
That money just goes straight to me, and I don't really have to do anything.
Oh, cool.
Well, that's okay. No,
it's like the In-N-Out Burger secret menu. You just gotta know
right.
how to.
Yeah.
Nice.
Right. He just has a webcam posted on him while he watches news and soccer during the day when he should be mixing.
Right. Yeah, that's what I do.
Right.
It shows that it's basically a whole thing about how to destroy your career.
Yeah.
Right.
Over the last 35 years.
And we'll do some fun things too, unrelated to music.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was out there doing a tutorial on how to rescreen a window. Stuff like that. I think we can be creative and surprise people. And plenty of entertainment value for your buck.
That's great. Yeah, most people think of us as all serious and stuff, but we're not. Well, these guys are. I'm not.
At the wonderful, tragic, mysterious tree, on that beautiful, scandalous night, you and me were atoned by his blood, forever washed white. On that beautiful, scandalous night, on that beautiful, scandalous night.
Thank you, guys. God bless you.
Thank you, guys. As I pull out my soapbox here, I'm drawn back to this idea of the band's name, the idea of the choir, and what that has come to mean. I've often leaned on the old cliche when lamenting the way people of faith become irrelevant to the watching world, or don't even try to engage their neighbors in lieu of the comfort and convenience of a consistent audience at home. We call it preaching to the choir, and in fact, we use that as the title of our 1996 cover story with these guys. But as I think about it, the choir is often as much in need of a good sermon as the rest of us. And who is the choir anyway? What I love about the moniker this band chose, especially in light of the journey they have experienced, is that their name now seems expansive enough to include all of us. We can all be in that choir, singing along if we want to be. Choirs are communal. I loved singing in a choir. It was an amazing thing to feel my voice vibrating in my own chest and throat, but to hear it disappear into a wall of sound. I sang in choirs of one kind or another from a very young age. Not all of them were very good, but a few were exceptional. I know what it's like to stand on risers with dozens of people, looking intently at our director, having worked hard to learn and understand a piece of music so that we could work as a unit to bring a song to life. At the time, as a teen, I didn't yet appreciate the value of what the director was investing in me. Unfortunately, singing in choir was not nearly as exciting as singing in a rock band. It was also much more difficult. Later, though, as I grew up, I came to understand the deep blessing that Mr. Ross Heisey, the choir director at Glenbard East High School, was in my life. I often long for those simpler, though challenging days of musical community. But our pals in the choir keep pushing forward against all odds. They work as a fractured and imperfect unit, telling their own stories and capturing the grit, failure, grace, and glory in the process. Derri sings Steve's lyrics. Steve provides structure for Derri's reverberating guitar, and Dan lays his graceful musical clouds over the top, and we all sing along, often with tears in our eyes. There's no longer any wall between the artist and the fans, the stage and the floor. We're all in it together, even if there are tragically few of us left listening and singing along. There's plenty of room here in the choir room. It's funny, but some of the most reckless, troubled kids I knew were choir kids. I never understood why anyone would describe a goody two-shoes as a choir boy. No, many of the kids I knew in the choir could have used a good sermon or two. And if that sermon was about grace, mercy, and humility, it may have been meant for me. What I love about being a member of this choir is that it reminds me that I was not built to live this life alone. We are meant for community. All of that stuff about stages and floors and celebrities and civilians is an illusion anyway. The only walls that exist are the ones we imagine or the ones we build with our own hands. Enough soloing, enough spectating. Put me in the choir already. Let me enter that wall of sound. Okay, I'm climbing off my soapbox now. That's going to do it for this episode of the True Tunes podcast. Thank you, Derri, Steve, and Dan, not only for your time today, but for your many years of service. May the road rise to meet you, as the Irish blessing says, and may the rain fall softly on your fields, and may many people join your new Patreon program. Thank you, of course, to my brother Bruce A. Brown for turning the dials, cutting the metaphorical tape, and making the show sound so good. Thank you to the folks at visiontrust.org for all they do, and to Phil Keggy and Rex Paul for our theme song. You can find a complete list of all the music used on this episode on the show notes page at truetunes.com, by the way, along with links to the choir's official website, some cool photos, and more. Don't forget about joining our email list, following our weekly Spotify playlist, and telling your friends about the show. The contents of the podcast are protected by U.S. copyright law and are the intellectual property of Gyroscope Productions, with the exception of songs or clips that are from previously copywritten materials. Everything on this episode is used by permission or under fair use provisions. This program is intended for the private use of our listening audience. Gyroscope Productions can be reached at jjt@truetunes.com or P.O. Box 60401, Nashville, Tennessee 37206. Until next time, this is JJT, reminding you that it's a good, great world we're wandering through together. So listen to the singers on either side of you, find your note, and let it fly.
Wide-eyed wonder girl, staring into the sky, wondering why. It's a good, great world, but it turns around. Never mind the ground. Look up high, stars above. Please don't cry. Father's love. Hold on tight to his hand. Dream tonight. Understand. Wide-eyed wonder girl, staring into the sky, wondering why. It's a good, great world, but it turns around. Never mind the ground. Look up high, dancing bear. Please don't cry. Daddy's breath. Hold on tight to my hand. Dream tonight. Wonderland. Wide-eyed wonder girl, staring into the sky, wondering why. It's a good, great world, but it turns, you'll see. So hold on tight to me. staring into the sky and wondering why. It's a good, great world, but it turns around, never mind the ground. Wide-eyed wonder girl, staring into the sky and wondering why. It's a good, great world, but it turns around, you'll see. So hold on tight to me.